a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy.
Roscoe Arbuckle. Roscoe Conkling, Fatty Arbuckle was an American silent film actor, comedian, director, and screenwriter. Starting at the Selig Polyscope Company, he eventually moved to Keystone Studios, where he worked with Mabel Norman and Harold Lloyd. He mentored Charlie Chaplin, and discovered Buster Keaton and Bob Hope. Arbuckle was one of the most popular silent stars of the 1910s, and soon became one of the highest-paid actors in Hollywood, signing a contract in 1920 with Paramount Pictures for $1 million. Between November 1921 and April 1922, Arbuckle was the defendant in 3 widely publicized trials for the rape and manslaughter of actress Virginia Rappe. Rappe had fallen ill at a party hosted by Arbuckle at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco in September 1921. She died 4 days later. Arbuckle was accused by Rappe's acquaintance of raping and accidentally killing Rappe. After the first 2 trials, which resulted in hung juries, Arbuckle was acquitted in the 3rd trial and received a formal written statement of apology from the jury. Despite Arbuckle's acquittal, the scandal has mostly overshadowed his legacy as a pioneering comedian. Following the trials, his films were banned and he was publicly ostracized. Although the ban on his films was lifted within a year, Arbuckle only worked sparingly through the 1920s. He later worked as a film director under the alias William Goodrich. He was finally able to return to acting, making short 2-reel comedies in 1932 for Warner Brothers. He died in his sleep of a heart attack in 1933 at age 46. Reportedly on the same day he signed a contract with Warner Brothers to make a feature film. Early life. Roscoe Conkling Arbuckle was born on March 24, 1887 in Smith Center, Kansas. One of 9 children of Mary E. Molly, Gordon and William Goodrich Arbuckle. He weighed in excess of 13 pounds at birth and, as both parents had slim builds, his father believed the child was not his. Consequently, he named the baby after a politician whom he despised, Republican Senator Roscoe Conkling of New York. The birth was traumatic for Molly, and resulted in chronic health problems that contributed to her death 12 years later. When Arbuckle was nearly 2, his family moved to Santa Ana, California. Arbuckle had a wonderful singing voice and was extremely agile. At the age of 8, with his mother's encouragement, he first performed on stage with Frank Bacon's company. During their stopover in Santa Ana, Arbuckle enjoyed performing, and continued on until his mother's death in 1899 when he was 12. His father, who had always treated him harshly, now refused to support him, and Arbuckle got work doing odd jobs in a hotel. Arbuckle was in the habit of singing while he worked and was overheard by a customer who was a professional singer. The customer invited him to perform in an amateur talent show. The show consisted of the audience judging acts by clapping, or jeering with bad acts pulled off the stage by a shepherd's crook. Arbuckle sang, danced, and did some clowning around, but did not impress the audience. He saw the crook emerge from the wings, and to avoid it somersaulted into the orchestra pit in obvious panic. The audience went wild, and he not only won the competition, but began a career in vaudeville. Career. In 1904, Sid Grauman invited Arbuckle to sing in his new unique theater in San Francisco, beginning a long friendship between the two. He then joined the Pantages Theater group touring the west coast of the United States, and in 1906 played the Orpheum Theater in Portland, Oregon in a vaudeville troupe organized by Leon Errol. Arbuckle became the main act and the group took their show on tour. On August 6, 1908, Arbuckle married Minta Durfee, the daughter of Charles Warren Durfee and Flora Adkins. Durfee starred in many early comedy films, often with Arbuckle. They made a strange couple, as Minter was short and petite while Arbuckle tipped the scales at 300 pounds. Arbuckle then joined the Roscoe Burbank stock vaudeville company and went on a tour of China and Japan, returning in early 1909. Arbuckle began his film career with the Selig Polyscope Company in July 1909 when he appeared in Ben's Kid. Arbuckle appeared sporadically in Selig one-reelers until 1913, moved briefly to Universal Pictures, and became a star in producer-director Mack Sennett's Keystone Cops comedies, working his way up through the acting ranks to become a lead player and director. Although his large size was undoubtedly part of his comedic appeal, Arbuckle was self-conscious about his weight and refused to use it to get cheap laughs. For example, he would not allow himself to be stuck in a doorway or chair. Arbuckle was a talented singer. After famed operatic tenor Enrico Caruso heard him sing, he urged the comedian to give up this nonsense you do for a living. With training you could become the second greatest singer in the world. Screen comedian. Despite his physical size, Arbuckle was remarkably agile and acrobatic. Director Mack Sennett, when recounting his first meeting with Arbuckle, noted that he skipped up the stairs as lightly as Fred Astaire, and, without warning, went into a feather-light step, clapped his hands, and did a backward somersault as graceful as a girl tumbler. His comedies are noted as rollicking and fast-paced, have many chase scenes, and feature sight gags. Arbuckle was fond of the pie in the face, a comedy cliché that has come to symbolize silent film era comedy itself. The earliest known pie thrown in film was in the June 1913 Keystone one-reeler A Noise from the Deep, starring Arbuckle and frequent screen partner Mabel Normand. In 1914, Paramount Pictures made the then unheard-of offer of $1,000 a day plus 25% of all profits and complete artistic control to make movies with Arbuckle and Normand. The movies were so lucrative and popular that in 1918 they offered Arbuckle a 3-year, $3 million contract. By 1916, Arbuckle was experiencing serious health problems. An infection that developed on his leg became a carbuncle so severe that doctors considered amputation. Although Arbuckle was able to keep his leg, he became addicted to the painkiller morphine. Following his recovery, Arbuckle started his own film company, Comique, in partnership with Joseph Schenck, although Comique produced some of the best short pictures of the silent era. In 1918, Arbuckle transferred his controlling interest in the company to Buster Keaton, and accepted Paramount's $3 million offer to make up to 18 feature films over 3 years. Arbuckle disliked his screen nickname. Fatty had also been Arbuckle's nickname since school. It was inevitable, he said. He weighed 185 pounds when he was 12. Fans also called Roscoe the Prince of Wales and the Balloonatic. However, the name Fatty identifies the character that Arbuckle portrayed on screen, not Arbuckle himself. When Arbuckle portrayed a female, the character was named Miss Fatty, as in the film Miss Fatty's Seaside Lovers. Arbuckle discouraged anyone from addressing him as Fatty off-screen, and when they did so his usual response was, "I've got a name, you know." Scandal. On September 5, 1921, Arbuckle took a break from his hectic film schedule and, despite suffering from second-degree burns to both buttocks from an accident on set, drove to San Francisco with 2 friends, Lowell Sherman and Fred Fishback. The 3 checked into 3 rooms at the St. Francis Hotel, 1219 for Arbuckle and Fishback to share, 1221 for Sherman, and 1220 designated as a party room. Several women were invited to the suite. During the carousing, a 26-year-old aspiring actress named Virginia Rappe was found seriously ill in room 1219 and was examined by the hotel doctor, who concluded her symptoms were mostly caused by intoxication, and gave her morphine to calm her. Rappe was not hospitalized until 2 days after the incident. Virginia Rappe suffered from chronic cystitis, a condition that liquor irritated dramatically. Her heavy drinking habits, and the poor quality of the era's bootleg alcohol could leave her in severe physical distress. She developed a reputation for over-imbibing at parties, then drunkenly tearing at her clothes from the resulting physical pain. But by the time of the St. Francis Hotel party, her reproductive health was a greater concern. Despite reports trying to paint her in a bad light, the autopsy revealed she never had any abortion nor was pregnant. At the hospital, Rappe's companion at the party, Bambina Maud Delmont, told Rappe's doctor that Arbuckle had raped her friend. The doctor examined Rappe, but found no evidence of rape. Rappe died 1 day after her hospitalization of peritonitis, caused by a ruptured bladder. Delmont then told police that Arbuckle raped Rappe, and the police concluded that the impact Arbuckle's overweight body had on Rappe eventually caused her bladder to rupture. Rappe's manager Al Semnacher accused Arbuckle of using a piece of ice to simulate sex with her, which led to the injuries. By the time the story was reported in newspapers, the object had evolved into being a Coca-Cola or champagne bottle, instead of a piece of ice. In fact, witnesses testified that Arbuckle rubbed the ice on Rappe's stomach to ease her abdominal pain. Arbuckle denied any wrongdoing. Delmont later made a statement incriminating Arbuckle to the police in an attempt to extort money from Arbuckle's attorneys. Arbuckle's trial was a major media event. William Randolph Hearst's nationwide newspaper chain exploited the situation with exaggerated and sensationalized stories. The story was fueled by yellow journalism, with the newspapers portraying him as a gross lecher who used his weight to overpower innocent girls. Hearst was gratified by the profits he accrued during the Arbuckle scandal, and later said that it had sold more newspapers than any event since the sinking of the Lusitania. Morality groups called for Arbuckle to be sentenced to death. The resulting scandal destroyed Arbuckle's career and his personal life. Arbuckle was regarded by those who knew him closely as a good-natured man who was shy with women. He has been described as the most chaste man in pictures. However, studio executives, fearing negative publicity by association, ordered Arbuckle's industry friends and fellow actors not to publicly speak up for him. Charlie Chaplin, who was in Britain at the time, told reporters that he could not believe Roscoe Arbuckle had anything to do with Virginia Rappe's death, having known Arbuckle since they both worked at Keystone in 1914. Chaplin knew Roscoe to be a genial, easygoing type who would not harm a fly. Buster Keaton reportedly did make one public statement in support of Arbuckle's innocence which earned him a mild reprimand from the studio where he worked. Film actor William S. Hart, who had never met or worked with Arbuckle, made a number of damaging public statements in which he presumed that Arbuckle was guilty. Arbuckle later wrote a premise for a film parodying Hart as a thief, bully, and wife-beater, which Keaton purchased from him. The following year in 1922, Keaton co-wrote, directed, and starred in The Frozen North, the resulting film, and as a result, Hart refused to speak to Keaton for many years. Trials. The prosecutor, San Francisco District Attorney Matthew Brady, an intensely ambitious man who planned to run for governor, made public pronouncements of Arbuckle's guilt and pressured witnesses to make false statements. Brady at first used Delmont as his star witness during the indictment hearing. The defense had also obtained a letter from Delmont admitting to a plan to extort payment from Arbuckle. In view of Delmont's constantly changing story, her testimony would have ended any chance of going to trial. Ultimately, the judge found no evidence of rape. After hearing testimony from one of the party guests, proven that Rappe told her, "Roscoe hurt me," on her deathbed, the judge decided that Arbuckle could be charged with first-degree murder. Brady had originally planned to seek the death penalty. The charge was later reduced to manslaughter.
Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?